I'd like to tell you about my friends Rhonda and Jerry Weil, an Arizona couple who look quite conventional from the outside. You're going to hear about their extraordinary baby chase, the extreme geographic, medical, financial, and ethical distances they traveled in order to have children. The tale is relevant and utterly fascinating for anybody who cares about how babies come into the world today. Rhonda is a nurse. She grew up outside of Niagara Falls in the 1970s, and as a little girl playing house, she dreamed of having 4 babies. Jerry is a firefighter. He recently became captain of his squad. He grew up in a tiny Nova Scotia town, where 4 of the other 400 residents were also named Jerry Weil. Rhonda and Jerry met and married in their late 20s. Jerry already had 2 beautiful daughters, an ex-wife, and a vasectomy. He didn't tell Rhonda about the vasectomy for 6 years, but that's a different, really entertaining story. Rhonda, although she hadn't known it, for her entire life had had 2 vaginas. 2. And 2 uteruses, an extremely rare medical condition. And some people might think that 2 vaginas sounds pretty nifty, but not exactly. Rhonda could get pregnant very easily, and she did, but she was doomed to miscarry 100% of those pregnancies because each of her uteruses was too small to grow a baby. Now, between the 2 vaginas, the 2 uteruses, and the 1 vasectomy, Rhonda and Jerry were infertile. Their particular case of infertility may sound unusual, but infertility itself is not. 1 in 8 couples faces this disease. And prior to 20th century ultrasound and x-rays, infertility was a lifelong, mystifying curse, rather than the highly treatable medical condition it is today. But even today, the inability to have children can make sufferers, women in particular, feel rejected by and isolated from our families, our communities, and even by God. So what did Rhonda and Jerry do? Well, if you are infertile, you basically have 4 options. The first is to accept that you are never going to have children, which to my surprise is what most people do. Over 50% of infertile couples never even seek treatment. But Rhonda and Jerry, like so many people, desperately wanted a baby, or 2, or 3. So they went to option 2, which is you can treat your infertility. This is lonely, nerve-wracking, isolating, and expensive, but they did it. First, a doctor reversed Jerry's vasectomy. It cost $9,000, but it was worth it because it worked. Next, they went to see 5 specialists about Rhonda's problem. And not a single doctor could hold out any hope that Rhonda's body would ever be able to gestate a baby to a viable stage. Option 3, if you're infertile, is adoption, which unfortunately is not as easy as most people think. Adoption can cost $60,000 or more today, and usually involves years of uncertainty, including invasive home visits, brutal financial competition, and even FBI fingerprinting. But anyway, adoption was irrelevant for the Wiles, because Rhonda couldn't adopt. Like over 24 million Americans, Rhonda Weil takes antidepressant medication, which automatically bumps her off of nearly every adoption agency's list of an acceptable mother to take a newborn home. Which leads us to the last option, which for infertile couples is increasingly the best option. But it is the one that initially sounds the most strange. Surrogacy. Hiring another woman to lend you her body for 9 months to create your biological baby. Compared to adoption and highly invasive medical intervention, surrogacy is actually the solution to infertility that most closely mimics natural pregnancy. For the Wiles, it was their only option. Recent advances in gestational surrogacy meant that Rhonda and Jerry could create the family they'd always dreamed of. They could make babies using Jerry's sperm, Rhonda's eggs, or what eventually turned out to be donor eggs, and an unrelated surrogate. Weird as it sounds, surrogacy has always been one of the solutions to the age-old problem of infertility. In fact, the Old Testament mentioned surrogacy via concubine over 20 times. Unfortunately, there are some very serious problems with surrogacy today. The first is it's financially unaffordable to almost everyone. A $100,000 treatment here in the United States, not covered by health insurance anywhere in the world, even though doctors consider infertility a disease. And oh yeah, surrogacy is not legal throughout the European Union, most of Asia, and 10 of the 50 United States, including Arizona, where Rhonda and Jerry live. Most mainstream religions, except for Judaism, oppose surrogacy, as do anti-abortion groups. And surrogacy is even a hardcore feminist taboo, because so many feminists consider surrogacy women exploiting other women. So back to Rhonda and Jerry. Because surrogacy is expensive and not legal where they live, they had to leave home in order to find a place where surrogacy is legal and well-regulated and affordable. They went all the way to India, 8,000 miles from home. Other popular destinations outside the United States for affordable legal surrogates include Panama, Mexico, and Ukraine. I'm happy to tell you that Jerry and Rhonda's story has a nice ending. Today, there are 3 beautiful, healthy, wild children, all US citizens, all conceived, gestated, and born in India using Jerry's sperm, donor eggs, and unrelated Indian surrogates. The 3 wild children, although carried by different women, are full biological siblings, a lifelong, priceless bond. And Rhonda and Jerry have learned firsthand that the 9 months of pregnancy are a very brief chapter in the long book of parenthood. The Indian women were well treated and received financial compensation that transformed their lives. They got excellent medical care, and by all apparent measures, recovered emotionally from not having relationships with the babies they carried. The Wiles' 6 trips to India and the fees paid to their surrogates and Surrogacy India, the clinic they used, totaled $30,000. A lot of money, but only about 1/10 what surrogacy would have cost in the United States. So the great news today is that surrogacy, IVF, and other medical advances have eradicated the consequences of infertility, a devastating affliction that has plagued humans for millennia. Today, anyone, a woman in her 40s whose cancerous uterus was removed in her 20s, 2 married gay men, a celibate nun, can have a baby, their own biological baby, via surrogate, without anything remotely resembling sex taking place. Surrogacy is thrilling, life-changing, species-transforming, disturbing. In other words, everything a huge medical advance should be. However, without broad, non-politicized societal consensus, fair national laws, and health insurance coverage, the miracle of surrogacy is meaningless or even heartbreaking for most people. Countries that innovate medical advances such as surrogacy without resolving the accompanying ethical dilemmas bring on a modern-day dystopia, one where messy realities render awe-inspiring medical miracles almost worthless. It's important that you know about some of surrogacy's not-so-happy endings, because they can have cruel, permanent consequences for families and children. Take the Medicine girls, French twins, born via surrogate in California, denied citizenship and the right to live in their own country due to France's condemnation of surrogacy. There's widespread surrogacy fraud around the world. For instance, US Attorney Teresa Erickson, who auctioned babies off to the highest bidder and went to jail for it. Or the baby with birth defects, conceived in Connecticut, whose surrogate, in order to avoid illegally contracted abortion, fled to Michigan, where she gave birth to and found an adoptive couple for the severely deformed baby who belonged to another family. Or the American infant born in India, a sperm mix-up meant she had no DNA connection to either parent, and her family could never bring her home. Today, we have infants born with 3 parents on their birth certificate, or no mother or no father. Sperm donors with 150 children. Ivy League graduates selling their eggs to the wealthiest clients. Trends towards genetic engineering, opportunists seeking to create better babies with unnaturally high IQs, customized eye and hair color, a complete absence of genetic flaws. Surrogacy is thriving outside the United States today because it's a huge medical tourism opportunity, a $10 billion market for third world countries willing to meet our fierce demand for babies. America and other first world countries are the ones who made gestational surrogacy commercially viable. But we're also the ones now who are outsourcing baby making, letting other countries steal motherhood from us due to our refusal to resolve surrogacy's ethical dilemmas and turn it into an affordable ethical treatment for the 1 in 8 couples who can't have babies without medical assistance. Are we completely whack job crazy? Devoid of any moral compass, to let other countries with different priorities take our medical innovations and make life-changing, species-transforming decisions for us, because that is precisely what we're doing. We are delegating our values, our ethics, our futures. We're outsourcing life here, not tech support or white cotton shirts. What do you think we're going to outsource next? Death? Religion? Political elections? Capital punishment? Anything that makes us uncomfortable? No parent anywhere should have to leave home in order to create their family, and no one should be denied a baby simply because they can't afford to make one. That's not the country I want. Do you? Medical technology can be a blessing or a curse. When we unleash innovation on the world without taking responsibility for it, we create a terrible problem. And it's up to us which path we take. Rhonda and Jerry Weil found a responsible, creative, loving solution to their personal medical and financial challenges. Is it really too much to hope that we, as a unified society, can do the same? The very altruism and quest for innovation that drive medical miracles such as surrogacy also remind us that these are people and lives and dreams we need to safeguard. Because we're talking about babies here. Families, children, life itself. Like my buddy Blaze Weil. Come on out here, Blaze. Like the beautiful Dylan Weil. Like her brother, Jet Weil. And like my friends, Rhonda and Jerry. Thank you all.